Today, we're gonna brew with this. Okay, a member of our audience, Mandolin Man, who likes to send us weird stuff, found this in, I think he said Indonesia?
That's very popular in Indonesia, so that makes sense.
He went all the way there to get it for us, I think, or something. And he didn't tell me what it was, and it showed up, and I read it, and I went,
it's in Indonesian.
Kulit buah pala. Yeah, that was very helpful.
So Google Poo, to the rescue.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's nutmeg pericarps, also known as mace, which I thought was pretty cool. And they're dried. It's a different spice. I actually kind of knew this, but the outside covering of a nutmeg nut is mace. It's a more reddish, more peppery, more like cinnamon pepper kind of flavor. Now, we decided we're gonna make a mead with this, but we've never worked with this before. So the first thing that we like to do when we have a product we've never worked with before is try to figure out how to open the bag. So there is no easy way to open this bag. I'm just gonna cut it and we'll have to repackage. But when you have a product that you've never used, use your senses, you know? I'm gonna make a tea from it. We're gonna take, I don't know, 5 pieces or so.
I remember when I was young and my mom used to bake, she would use mace in baking.
Mace is a very popular spice. Now, if this was ground up into a powder, it would probably extract faster. My question is, do we want to make a tea as the base for our mead, or do we want to use the actual pericarps themselves? Not sure yet. I want to make a tea first and find out what kind of flavors we get out of this. So let me go get some hot water. All right, and some boiling water going in. Mace tea is actually very popular in a lot of places, and it's really good for digestion, apparently. That looks like probably a lot for this volume, so I'm just gonna put more water in there. And I'm gonna let that steep for like 10 minutes or so. All right, so this has been steeping for like 10 minutes or so. And on the smell, it doesn't smell like a lot. Like there's a smell there. Go ahead and give it a taste unless you want me to be the first victim.
I don't mind. It's pleasant, but it's not overly strong.
Okay. Now, initially I was thinking we're gonna have to make a tea from this and let it extract for 10 minutes or so. I'm thinking we could just put the whole pericarps right in there.
All right,
which changes everything. Now we got to use a little big mouth bubbler. We were gonna use this kind of fermenter, but now we're gonna use a little big mouth bubbler because I think this is actually gonna take quite a bit of them. I put in 5 whole pieces and I thought that sounds like so much. It's not a strong flavor.
But the flavor that I am getting, I think is gonna pair lovely with honey.
Yes. Oh yeah, this is gonna be like a spiced metheglin style. Yes, it's got a really nice, cinnamony, peppery thing going on. It really cool. So we're gonna get a new fermenter and we'll be right back. Okay, so I wanna explain something. I said we're not gonna just make a tea, and there's a reason for that. 10 minutes of sitting, this really didn't extract all that much. So I think with a cold brew kind of situation, this would extract over a longer period of time and possibly pull out more flavors without over extracting too fast. So that's my theory, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Now, question for you.
Yes.
To throw a wrench in the works at this point, I would really
go for it.
Do we know if this has similar properties to other spices as being antibacterial?
Probably. So that's something else to be aware of that we have to be careful of. So there's 2 ways to approach this. We could ferment with that right in there, or we could put it in conditioning. I'm gonna throw caution to the wind and we're gonna ferment with it because people do make wine from this. So if they make wine from it, it's gotta be relatively okay. Based on the fact that the flavor wasn't uber strong, I would say it's probably not as strong of an antibiotic as some other things might be. So
we will find out.
That's my theory, you know. And that's the thing, when you're working with products that you've never really worked with before, you're kind of, taking chances and experimenting a little bit. So that's what we're doing in this exact video. So we have here some honey. This is like, what, a wildflower?
I think so.
This is okay. The type of honey that you use is normally kind of an important thing, but I'm expecting this to have such a strong flavor from the mace that it's not super critical. So we went with more or less a neutral honey. I believe this is actually a blend of like wildflower and stuff that we had laying around. So it's, you know, more or less wildflower. 3 pounds of honey we're gonna use for this one. By the way, everything that we're using here has been sanitized in
the red bucket of sanitization.
That's a very important step. Everything that we're using, the fermenter, everything, I'm gonna be using a spoon in a minute. That was all sanitized. Everything's been sanitized. So safety precaution. All right, so what I wanna do now, we have our honey. I wanna put some water in here, get it about halfway up. So I have here some warm-ish water. It's probably only like a little bit above blood temperature.
Before you pour, look and see how much you have so you know how much you're adding. I have 96
ounces of water.
Okay.
I measured, because people always ask us, and I want to make about a gallon. So 3 pounds of honey takes up roughly a quart. So, you know, we have 3 quarts of water, 1 quart of honey, 4 quarts, 1 gallon. Yeah. We are using US gallons, by the way, because do I sound British? And I'm going to put, about that much water in. Then I need a spoon to mix it with, please. And then just, you know, mix it up. If you use slightly warm water to do the mixing, it tends to go a little faster. This came together pretty nicely, pretty quick. People ask all the time, what is fermento? It's not fermento, it's fermado. It's just the way it comes out of my mouth sometimes. We actually have a link to it in the description. It's a nutrient for your yeast. It's an organic nutrient, so it's basically like yeast hulls and some other nutrients that your yeast want in order to be able to do the best job they can. So, next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna put this on a scale and weigh in some mace.
Actually, do you want to take the gravity reading now? Because the mace shouldn't affect the gravity reading.
We could. However, I feel much better putting everything in and then taking the reading.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I just feel better.
Okay.
So let's put the scale back under. Make sure your scale can handle this kind of weight. I think this one should be able to. I think it goes to 17 pounds. Nope.
Nope.
All right, we'll get out the other scale. Just a point of note, if you have the same scale that we have, the baker's one, I just weighed this just to see how much it weighs. It's just 14.5 pounds. So 17 is a little bit off. It said it was way too much. This other scale, this is our older one, this does 55 pounds. It's just not quite as accurate.
This does 50 pounds.
It says 50 pounds right on it, so it does 50 pounds, not 55. Okay, so I have that on there. Tear it out, and now let's add some mace. I have no idea how much I'm gonna add. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use intuition and guesswork, which means I'm just gonna throw a bunch in. And it sounds very unscientific, but you have to understand, we made a tea using 5 pieces, and it really wasn't all that strong. So I am just going to pour quite a bit in here. Five ounces. 5 ounces. How did I arrive at that number? It looks like a pretty good amount to have in there, and it was a nice round number.
You want to take a note?
I'm going to take a note. 5 ounces mace. Something I am realizing right away is that these things will have to soak up more liquid. Looking in my teacup, they aren't really softening much. So that means it's going to be a long extraction process here. But also, I want to make sure to swirl this pretty often to keep them moist, or else we could get bad stuff happening, you know, molds and that sort of thing. So it is something to be aware of. Mixing them up real good in the beginning, get everything wet. They start to fall, as you can see in the tea, they actually fell. So they won't float forever. We just needed them to soak up and sink. So hopefully, you know, by the time things start up, it'll sink. That is something to just watch out for. What's next?
Are you going to take the gravity reading?
Oh yeah, gravity reading. See, this is why there's 2 of us. This is why she wanted me to do the gravity reading first, because I got to get below all the stuff to not suck up the stuff. But see, it's not that big of a deal. I'm a creature of habit. I do things the same way almost every time. We're actually aiming for like a 1.105 gravity or so. Looks like 1.110. Perfectly acceptable. 1.105 to 1.110. 5 points, not really all that worried about it. Let me take this back out and pour our sample back in because everything was sanitized. We can do this. And then yeast. We're going with the beast for this one, 71B, Lalvin 71B that is, partially because we haven't used it in like forever. And I don't know, it just came to mind. I know it works really well in some of the weird random stuff that we've done in the past, so we're giving it a shot. And how much am I gonna use? The whole thing, because I have no idea what this is going to do. So this is very much an experiment. And always, what do?
Crack your packet!
Yep, there's still a couple yeasties in there.
Yeah.
Get out. I can hear them. And I am going to mix this through a little bit just because they're going to stick on top of those pericarps is what they're called. And I don't really want that to happen. I want the yeast to get into the liquid. Though I'm fairly certain in the next couple of hours, all these things are going to drop. They're going to soak up the liquid and fall, just like they did in the tea. But when it's colder liquid, it'll take longer for them to absorb it.
Now, another reason why I'm happy we used the little big mouth bubbler for this particular thing is because, again, we haven't fermented with this before and we don't know how active the fermentation might be. So with that additional headspace room, it can bubble to its little heart's content and hopefully not make a mess.
Right, and that's an important distinction. In primary fermentation, headspace doesn't matter. You can have as much as you want. It doesn't matter at all. You're very unlikely to oxidize in a closed container in primary, no matter how much headspace you have, because it's going to make CO2. It's gonna force all the air out of there. Okay. However, once you get to secondary, it's a whole different thing. So for now, that's it. But the whole purpose of this was, A, to use something that a viewer sent us, because we think it's really cool when people send us things. And that came from like a whole other country that was difficult to find, apparently. And hey, I've never seen anybody make this before, so let's give it a try. But B, to show you how to approach making a brew with unknown materials. Because it's really easy to make a brew if you've done it a million times and you have all the same stuff and you always do it that way. But when it's something brand new, how do you make up your own recipe? How do you start from scratch with something you've never had before? So I thought this was kind of a neat idea. And at the end, part of why we went so simple with the beginning is because at the end is when you can make some fine-tuning adjustments, and we may need to. I don't even know what's going to come of this yet. You're going to learn as we do. That's half the fun of this. But for now, what are we going to do with this?
We're going to let it sit.
Couple weeks. Hopefully it'll ferment out. We'll see you then. So it's been like 6 days. I can't help but notice, but that airlock is not moving anymore. This is probably the one fear that we had with this, is that this stuff is going to be a strong antibiotic. So I already have the yeast hulls ready to go. That's my first plan of attack for a stalled brew. But let's take a reading. You never know. Maybe it's actually done. Doubt it. As always, olfactory and optical assessment. Nothing really fell. They're all still very much floating at the top. It does definitely smell like nutmeg.
I am seeing quite a significant of little baby bubble production.
Bubbling.
So I think it's still going. It's possible this is just going to be one of those slow ferments.
It's possible too. If that's the case, some yeast hulls won't hurt it. So let me get below these guys, suck up some of the juice. It's very cloudy, which tells me this ain't done. There's no way it's done. 5 days would be very, very fast for a 1.110 gravity. The fact that there's no activity in the airlock is concerning for me. It is sitting at, ooh, that's not great. It's looking like 1.068 to me. So it's stalled. When you have a stall, there's a couple things you can do. My first line of defense is to mix it up real good, get everything moving, and add some yeast hulls. Adding fermento is okay, but I think the extra nitrogen at this point doesn't help it from what I've seen, read, and been told. Don't ask me on the exact science because that's not really what we do. But what I'm gonna do is add a teaspoon of yeast hulls. This is probably the best use of yeast hulls I've ever seen. And if you don't have yeast hulls, take some bread yeast or dead yeast, put it in a little container of water, boil it for a couple of minutes, throw it in there. It's the exact same thing. I'm using a whole teaspoon. That's more than I would normally use. But I feel that the antibiotic properties on this stuff is super, super strong. And that's probably what caused the stall. And I know what you're saying. Why don't you just put it in conditioning instead? Well, maybe we will. We didn't get there yet. I like to exhaust all possibilities before. Now, if you notice, as I stir that, there's a lot of gases coming out. So I'm gonna try to degas this slightly too. I don't wanna oxidize, that's the other thing, but I don't think I could oxidize this right now. There's so much gas coming out. There's a lot of CO2 in here.
So degassing at this stage is going to help clear the environment of those unwanted products so that the yeast may be a little bit more comfortable and be able to continue doing their work.
What a lovely color, don't you think? It's like swamp water green, you know? It has an amazing smell. It really does. It smells like a very strong nutmeg metheglin. It really does. Might have used a little bit too much of the mace. We'll find out. So by stirring this all up, I'm getting everything active again, getting all the lees off the bottom, getting any yeast that are still alive in there back up into suspension, getting them moving. Getting all the gases out is a big help, and then giving them a little bit of yeast stalls, a little bit of, you know, cannibalism goes a long way with yeast. Some extra food to go off of. That might get them going again. And if that doesn't work, we have other steps we can take. But for now, I'm gonna put the lid back on, tighten this sucker down. Apply my label. What are we gonna do with it now?
I'm gonna let it sit.
Give it another week or so, see what happens, and we'll be back to give you more of an update. Okay, so it's been 2 weeks since we looked at this last, and it's because it was still kind of bubbling, nice and slow. It was at 1.068, and it seemed to have stalled. So we added some yeast stalls. Let's see how it's doing now.
It actually released one final bubble as we were removing it from the shelf, just to give us fits, you know. But this is our first test.
Yeah, because when you have a stall and you restart it, you basically start over again. So this is essentially the first check on a primary fermentation. And as you can see, it's still very cloudy, which could mean it's still stalled, or it could mean that it just hasn't cleared yet. And if you hear loud noises in the background, our neighbor is having some work done. And if you've watched other videos where we talked about that, yes, it's the same day. Okay, well, it definitely did some, okay? And because we still saw a bubble, and we started over again, we're gonna let this go another week, but it's at 1.010. So it actually dropped significantly since then. 1.010. So it moved 58 points. I mean, that's pretty good.
That's impressive.
So I'm gonna pour this sample back in, and we're gonna put the cap back on, and we're gonna let this sit.
Do you want to give it a nice little swirl with
After I put this in,
Okay.
yeah. What she's talking about is, in situations like this, sometimes it's good to just get everything moving again. So I'm gonna just grab the baster and get all the lees and everything all moving around again. There's a lot of stuff floating in here.
Now, if you notice, he's minimizing the movement at the surface level and maximizing the movement at the bottom. So that way he's not introducing oxygen into the brew. He is also not squeezing the bowl.
No.
That would be bad because that would be forcing oxygen all the way down to the bottom of the brew, which we don't want to do.
There's always a little bit of inherent risk whenever you do something like this, but it's a case of let's get that extra 10 points versus possibly having it suddenly decide to start fermenting in the bottle, you know, that kind of thing. So that's where we're at with this. Also, it turns it a lovely color of swamp green. But it does. I mean, hey, I'm an honest guy. It looks like swamp water.
It's not swamp green. It's more brown than green.
Oh, swamp brown. That's so much better. It does smell really amazing, though. It's like super spiced mead. We may have put too much mace pieces in there.
Yeah, but this is our first time working with this ingredient from Indonesia. Thank you very much. So
I don't know. I think I'm going to like it
Brian's
anyway.
probably going to like it regardless.
Well, what'll happen is if we have too much spice, there's ways to counter that.
Yeah.
And that's all. And we'll work on that when we get to it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, you know? For today, I'm not going to worry about it. For today, what are we going to do?
We're going to put the label back on with our updated notes, and then we're going to put it back in the fermentation station to let it sit.
For at least another week. And we'll be back with you then to show you what it looks like then. When we looked at this a week ago, it was at 1.010, so it's time to give another check and see where it's at now. The olfactory and optical assessment. It smells of mace. Which, if you're not sure what that is, it's kind of like nutmeg. Kind of, sort of. Well, I mean, it's the nutmeg carapaces. Also, quite a few of them actually fell. Yeah. They did soak up the liquid and fall to the bottom.
Now, last reading, we were at 1.010.
This time we're at 1.010. Now, you might be saying, oh, well, that probably stalled. That may be true, but I have a feeling that there's no way this is going to ferment more because different yeasts do different things. This is Lalvin 71B, which is usually a really great performer. The mace itself is antibiotic. Okay, there's a lot of antibiotic properties there. So let's, you know what, let me figure out how much alcohol we made. You know what? I don't even need a calculator. 1.110 minus 1.010 is 0.100 times 13.5, or times 135 is 13.5. Yeah. So we made 13.5% alcohol.
Not too shabby.
Okay. So I think we should rack this. I think it's been on the mace long enough, probably too long. So let's go to a wide mouth 1 gallon.
Let's. Do we want to take a taste of this now or no?
Nope. Okay, so this is what I mean by a wide mouth 1 gallon fermenter. They're just slightly smaller than the closed mouth. And I'm looking at the volume here and knowing there's a lot of solids in there. I just want to limit the headroom. Just going to pour my sample right into here nice and carefully so as not to splash.
The reason why he doesn't want to splash these is he doesn't want to oxygenate the brew.
Yes, that.
Oxygenating the brew at this point with the alcohol present could activate acetobacters, which are naturally present, which could then turn this into vinegar, even though
it's not very likely.
Not very likely due to the ABV that it's currently at. It
more
also
likely to cause off flavors.
Could cause off flavors, right?
It's just something to be aware of and be careful of. It's not something to be paranoid of. Apparently, a lot of people are terrified to leave a ½ inch of headspace. Nah, don't worry about that. And, you know, if you're pouring, it's really not a good idea to pour at all. But if you're pouring, try to be as careful as you can. If you absolutely must pour, please don't pour. Use an auto siphon. But if you absolutely must pour, then do it as carefully as possible. Try not to splash. Like, don't do the fancy pitcher thing from way up top. Don't do that. That's bad. I know there's some wines that are actually like oxygenated on purpose. I know sherry is actually oxygenated, but for most purposes, you really don't want to do it. There's going to be quite a bit of loss here. So yeah. All right. So as you can see, it's cloudy because I went pretty deep into that lees to just get as much out as possible. This may require a couple of rackings to get it totally clear. But for now, what are we going to do with it?
We're going to let it sit.
I'm just going to stick my note on there where I said that I racked it and it's down to 1.010. Go put it in the fermentation station and see you in a week or two. So it's been like another week and it's time to see how this is. What we're going to do now is do our final racking and penultimate tasting, which if you don't know what the penultimate tasting is, it means the tasting before the final tasting, which would be the ultimate tasting. But this is the one where we decide, does it need anything? And wow, I can smell it already. I'm not even joking. It has a very strong scent. It's kind of nutmeggy, which, you know, makes sense since it's the carapace of nutmeg. You guys have seen us rack this already, so we're just going to fast forward to the end.
Okay,
we racked it.
We racked it, and in racking it, we noticed that the sediment did fall out quite nicely. It is super loose, so we had to pull it short. And what that simply means is that we didn't go to the very, very end because it makes a big mess.
So we lost about 750 mils or like maybe 20 ounces or so.
Yeah, we are fine with that.
I need to get a glass. What we're going to do now is just take a sample. You know, everybody likes to take samples of their brews. And we're going to look at it. We're going to smell it. And we're going to drink it.
It's pretty.
It's actually nice and clear.
Yeah.
Smells like medicine, though. Very strong.
Ooh, doggy.
May have used a little too much mace. It's possible.
Yeah, and you know, this is our first time working with this product. We actually
and I tried looking it up. And
to look it up like to see what the heck it was, and it was like the 7 steps of figuring out that it was mace.
All right, I'll do it first.
Because we don't speak in Indonesian. It's a downfall. We need to work on that.
Ooh. Tastes like an extract. But I think with some sweetness, this could be really good. I actually really like the flavors. I'm tasting some fruitiness. I'm tasting the mace, nutmeg, even a little, almost like a cinnamon heat.
Cinnamon clove combo.
Oh yeah, I actually like it, but it does need to be sweeter. It just...
Oh. So my dad, because we have so much of this stuff, has been making mace tea and pretty much drinking it every night. He's really been enjoying it.
Likes
so
it.
I think he would enjoy this as well.
Your dad drinks weird teas though.
He does.
He also likes to take regular tea and let it steep for about 3 days and then drink it. And I'm only exaggerating by a day or so.
He doesn't do it on purpose. It's accidents.
He forgets.
All right, you need a spoon.
I need a spoon.
Bing!
Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're all magical. Okay, so as we always like to do, we're not going to flavor this with a specific amount of honey. We're going to add honey to taste, okay? Now, this is a very effective way to do it because we don't even have a full gallon today. So adding like, saying, oh, I want it to be a 1.020. Well, how do you know that you actually want this to be 1.020? I'm betting this needs to be much sweeter than that before it's going to be good. So by just adding honey till you like it, and then you take a reading, now you can repeat that, or we can have you repeat it with any volume that you happen to make. But I'm going to take a quick guess and put about
3 glugs, 4 glugs.
About that much in there.
4.5 glugs.
Because I think this needs to be sweet.
Oh.
Don't get me wrong, this is in my wheelhouse. This is definitely my kind of thing.
Say that.
I think I liked the dry much, much better than she did. Once it gets sweet though, I will probably love this. It's very strong. I mean, they don't call it metheglin for nothing.
Yeah.
Medicinal mead. This will put hair on your chest.
I don't really want that.
No, I don't either. I don't want hair on your chest. Still smells quite strong, but I smell a little bit of the honey now. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so much better. It's not quite there, but it's so much better. Mm-hmm. Needs a little bit more. Not a lot, just a little touch. 3 glugs. Don't go by glugs, please, because every bottle's different. By the way, this bottle of honey was given to us by the Pinellas Beekeepers Association when we went to give a presentation at one of their local meetings. It was pretty cool. There was like 100 people in the room. Yeah. And we just taught them about making mead. And at least, I think 4 or 5 people were already watched the show. So I thought that was really awesome. There's nothing like walking into a room and having people recognize you. It's kind of a surreal feeling.
Yes, it's very humbling.
Especially when they're like, I had no idea you guys lived in Pinellas County. Yeah, we live like 20 minutes from here. Yeah. All right. I think that's probably going to do it. But we taste again. Now, if you're doing this on your own and not being recorded and not trying to put out a TV show, YouTube show, you're probably going to want to take more time with it. In other words, spend a little time, pour yourself a glass, enjoy it. See if it really needs more sweetening before you just go adding more. We're doing it a little on the quick side, but you get the idea. Now, I definitely smell the honey.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing. Oh yeah. So now it's got the mouthfeel really nice too. The viscosity came back. It toned that spice down, just took it down. But it's still strong. I mean, it's still got a strong spice flavor. You know this is a metheglin. You just know.
Yep.
But now I think, what do you think? Is that good? Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm going to take a reading. I'm going to guess on the reading, just because I like to do this and, prove myself wrong or sometimes right. I'm going to guess 1.038. Let's find out. Can you verify, please?
You said 1.038?
I did.
Why do I hate you so much?
It is 1.038. Is it?
It might be 1.039. Maybe. I don't know. It's 1.038. Who are we kidding? You're obnoxious. And this is why I don't feel bad that I am math deficient, because he is like the opposite of deficient. You're math savant or something weird.
Hey, just because I see colors and shapes instead of numbers. Yeah, it's okay.
All right.
There's a word for it. Synesthete or something like that.
So now that we have back sweetened this with honey, we have an additional step that we need to do. We need to pasteurize this.
Because if you don't, it's going to continue fermenting. And in this case, we definitely don't want that to happen because this tastes nice the way it is. We want to stop the fermentation process. So I'm going to pour this sample back in. Before we move on, let me calculate our ABV. Yeah, I don't know that we did that. So this started at 1.110. Oh, actually, it's really simple. Start at 1.110, ended at 1.010. That leaves 0.100 times 135 gives us 13.5%. See, that's easy math. Gotta love those. But what we're gonna do now is...
Do you want to make a mark of the ABV? Even though it's easy math, still.
Got it, done. What we're gonna do now though, and we're gonna do it off camera just to save some time.
We're gonna rack this into a 1 gallon pitcher, and then we're going to pasteurize it, and then we're gonna let that sit, let it clear out. Sometimes there's particles in the pasteurization process, and then we're gonna bottle it, and then we'll be back with you with our final tasting.
If you haven't seen our pasteurization video, we use the sous vide or a heat immersion circulator, to pasteurize the brews. We do it right in the fermenter. We do have a video on just that. Really simple process. We just don't want this video to be 14 hours long. Okay, so we pasteurized it. It's been sitting for a while. It's clearing up. There's a bunch of goop in the bottom.
I don't know, but this pasteurization thing, it just seems
magical.
Like it's fantastic. It clears things, it ages things, as Brian likes to call
aging.
Faux aging.
Faux.
It's fantastic.
Faux. Faux aging.
Because that's a significant amount of stuff that fell out of suspension.
Absolutely.
And the clarity on this now, look at that.
That's like an 8.5.
Beautiful.
So we're doing this right from the fermenter to do a couple things. First, there's a lot of goop in there, and I wanted to get the clear stuff off the top for the tasting. And this way we can bottle it off camera. You've seen us bottle before. If you haven't, we have videos on that. We also put one away for 1 year, one away for 2 years. In this case, we're not gonna have a lot left. So I didn't wanna bottle and then taste and have like a half a bottle. So there's a couple of reasons why we did it this way. Clarity, or color-wise, I would say it's a beautiful amber.
Yep.
It's actually a typical mead color, which I would have thought it'd come out more brown.
I thought it would too, but apparently
it was like muddy, murky brown.
The Mace didn't give as much of a color difference as we were anticipating.
Clarity, like I said, it's about an 8.5. I mean, I can see my finger right through the side. There's a bit of a haze. Apparently, it has a strong smell.
That'll wake you up.
Ooh.
That's like, I have this little medicinal container that is called, I think it's called a smelling pot, or I don't know what it's called.
But I'm getting cinnamon and cloves and allspice.
All these herbs and spices in it, and
nutmeg.
It's used to, you smell it when you're having sinus problems. And
cinnamon, clove, allspice, chili, nutmeg.
Opens the sinus cavities.
Coriander.
Wakes you up.
Cardamom.
Good to go. And that's just on the aroma.
A little bit of like a citrus orange.
Yeah. This Mace stuff, maybe those Indonesians are onto something. See, my dad has
what a strong smell. Wow.
Yeah, don't stick your nose fully in there. I'm just like...
I'm doing good with that.
My dad has been drinking Mace tea basically every night since he's been visiting us.
Sometimes with whiskey in it.
Sometimes with whiskey in it. He had a sore throat, and he had Mace tea with whiskey.
Fixed him right up.
Done.
Not sure if it was the Mace tea or the whiskey.
Good to go. It doesn't matter. We were happy.
This smells wonderful to me. I like it.
It's very energizing.
This is my kind of thing. Okay, I'm tasting it.
All right.
Ooh. On the flavor, it's sweet, obviously. This was the 1.038. But it's not like that cloyingly, sickeningly sweet at all, because the spices are so strong. It has a touch of a medicinal flavor.
It's reminding me of clove.
Yeah, there's a lot of clove feeling. Well, that's nutmeg. Nutmeg can be kind of hot.
Back in the day, I may or may not had a slight obsession with clove. As we were inclined to be. My subgroup.
Sure.
The wearers of black. Cheers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I you smell the clove, you're like, clove. But, it's okay. This is reminding me of that. It's bringing me back to those days, and it's not a bad place to be.
I don't hate this. I think it could be improved. I think it needs more spices. Not mace, though. It actually needs cinnamon. It actually needs allspice.
You want the full gamut.
Because there's a medicinal quality to this already, and I feel like it's just a little too medicinal.
I was feeling like maybe we oversteeped the mace, because if you remember, initially,
I don't think so. We
steeped the tea and we're like, oh, it really isn't strong enough, so let's just throw some mace in there. I think our steeping of the mace may have been...
bitter.
I'm getting a little bit.
No, I think we used too much mace.
Oh.
There's a difference between over-extracting and using too much. I think we used too much. Didn't over-extract. It's not bitter.
Okay.
It's just very strongly spiced.
Okay. I can come to that compromise.
My thinking is this. Since this is still sitting in a fermenter, let me throw a cinnamon stick in there. A couple of allspice berries.
You're just going crazy.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Talking crazy sauce.
She's not drinking this. I am.
Well, you knew he was going to add allspice berries because of his dear, undying love to the allspice berry.
I'm not putting any clove in it, though, because it's got plenty of that.
Yeah, we don't need that. One cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
Are you going with your standard 10, or are you going to limit yourself? Whoa.
That much.
How you have to count those bad boys, or volumize somehow.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 20. 20.
20. All right.
Just because I don't feel like counting anymore.
All right. Take a note, please.
20 allspice berries.
Today is the 1st. That's right. It's March 1st. Happy March, everyone.
Mandalorian comes out today.
Woohoo!
Okay, so basically here's what we're going to do on this. We're going to end up giving this a score, and then we're going to let this sit for a couple weeks, and then we'll come back with another tasting to show you how we even improved it past that. Make sense? I know you answered me when I asked that question. Yeah, I think it actually needs more spices, which sounds really weird because it's very strongly spiced, but it's like a one-note spice. It's not as rounded. I do taste some cinnamon. I do taste some allspice, but I taste mostly clove. And clove is my least favorite of the spices that way. I know she loves it, but okay. Do you have a number?
I am conflicted in
me too.
my numeral selection.
Okay, I'll go over the scoring system. It goes from 1 to 10. 1 being totally sucks. 10 being totally great. Anything in between is varying levels of suckitude to greatness. We go with half points, because quarter points just is too complicated. And remember, your taste may vary on day to day, time to time, hour by hour, and with what you ate before, or what you're thinking about eating afterwards, maybe.
I'm ready.
Okay, I have a number 2. 1, 2, 3, 6.5. Very close.
Very close. Surprisingly close, considering our differencing opinions on method
I have
lines.
high hopes.
Yes, high hopes.
Yeah. Why are you a 6?
All right, I'm a 6 because the happy place that's bringing me with my clove memories. I
I
can't
think you'd be higher than.
drink a lot of this.
Now this is
In
definitely
fact,
a one and done.
I'm probably going to have difficulty finishing my sample because it's potent. It is, but look at that. Bling! I finished my sample. Ah, I'm a good girl. But I can appreciate that even though it's overly spiced, the back sweetening that we did bring that sweetening up to a level that you could say, oh, this is definitely a mead. I can appreciate Brian's addition of other spices to try to round out and have a more of a complex spice profile. I do know that this is kind of a cheater because Brian is Mandolin
Man.
Mandolin Man.
Ooh, I need a t-shirt. Mandolin Man. Oh, I totally want that. I totally want that now.
I just have to come up with a visual for that, but I
Oh,
can,
that's so awesome.
I can make that happen.
With a big M in the middle.
I love alliteration, so what can I say? But see, you derailed me.
I'm so excited about that shirt, though. Oh my God, that's so awesome.
There's the tingly sensation that I get from clove, gum, cigarettes, whatever, that I like, but in a beverage format, it's like, okay,
You smoked clove cigarettes?
I did not smoke clove cigarettes.
I was gonna say, I thought you
but
never smoked anything.
I did the goth girl club chick thing where I would follow people.
You would follow people that were
around
smoking?
who were smoking cloves.
Is that why when Mark smoked the clove cigarettes, you were excited?
A little bit.
Okay, we had a friend that used to
I'm
smoke
ashamed
cloves.
to admit, but yeah.
Yet she hated it when I was a smoker.
A memory trigger.
I didn't smoke cloves.
You didn't smoke cloves.
I smoked Camels.
Completely
Not
different
anymore.
animal.
I quit.
All right, I need to get off this
We're
conversation.
totally derailed.
People are gonna be like, Derica, what the? Yeah, no.
We make alcohol for a living.
We make
Come on.
alcohol for a living. This
I
is
don't
true.
think clove cigarettes are really such a
This is
problem.
true. Okay, I was a goth. I'm sorry.
Oh, as if they didn't already know.
Well, now you know for sure.
I was not.
You were not. I like it, but I don't like it. And I want to be able, in my experience of a beverage, I want to be able to either fully experience it and be like, this was the coolest thing ever, or just to drink it unabashedly and go, yay, I am happy. This falls in somewhere between into a void of neither of those things. So I couldn't go higher than that. But I wanted to.
That's fair.
And so I'm hopeful that your
I think it's gonna bring
complexity
it up.
that you have created now will bring it up to a point where I'd be like, okay, this is experience. I drank my little amount. I'm completely happy with that experience, and now I can go on with my life.
Let me fully explain my decision to add more spices. We added the sweetness because the spices were overpowering, okay? And they can be very astringent. Well, we sweetened it enough, like to the right level. It's just the spices now are very predominant, like they're very forward still, but they're sweet spice. But it's only one note, and that one note isn't wholly pleasing.
And you may be going, wait, Brian, you said you were tasting all those other things. And he was mentally tasting all those things. So now he's put them actually in there. So
To intensify.
right.
In other words, I had
instead of
this
ghost-
flavor of it,
ghost
and all these other things
memories.
were just kind of there. Now
Yeah.
they all come up. Because if you look at our metheglin that we made, it was pretty much equal notes of all those spices. So I'm trying to bring this up to that kind of level.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it an 11, okay? I'll just be honest. I don't know that it could ever get there in its current form, but I think it has the sweetness level already to be close. And then with the addition of these other spices to kind of fill in gaps. That's the easiest way to say it. Like there's holes in the flavor profile that needed to be filled. And I think the cinnamon and allspice berries might actually do that. We're gonna have to check this in like a week to see how it is, and then maybe 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks of extraction is probably gonna do what we need to do. So we'll see it in either a week or 2 weeks, depending on how life goes.
Quickly, my synopsis on Mace is that it's actually a worthwhile ingredient to add to your brews.
It's actually really good for you too as a tea. Just there was a lot of health benefits that we found out about it. So definitely something interesting.
So this was gifted from
Mandolin Man.
Mandalorian Man? Or
Mandolin Man.
Mandolin Man.
Mandolin Man 505 or something like that.
So thanks again, dude.
Yeah, he went to Indonesia and got this. Like, he didn't have it shipped. He went there and got it. Who does that? But anyway, apparently Mandolin Man
I would
does.
love to do that.
Yeah,
but
I think that's kind of awesome. But anyway, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.